Hey there, welcome class. Hello, hello. Today, what I wanted to do just for a few minutes was walk through how to illustrate the contours. This is like a continuation, even though the maps are different. This is you can think of it like a part two of the profiles that you guys were doing earlier. Now, what you've done is with the profiles, you had everything kind of on their side. Now, what you're doing is you're going to look from a top-down perspective, kind of like this. Okay, so traditionally, when you look at maps of elevation, they will have some type of contour values or contour lines throughout them. And the objective is for you guys, after completing this part, to kind of observe both from the profile and also from the top down, right? You looked at the top down and you figured out your profile, but now we're going to essentially look at the top down and only with a few different elements of information, your spot elevations. I do want you guys to watch this in its entirety. You're probably gonna have to go back and do this several times. I recommend printing the paper, printing the PDF out on paper, and use a pencil. Use a pencil because you're gonna have lots of times where it's not working the way you want it to. Okay. But if you use a pencil, then you can go back and, obviously make corrections as you need to. Take your time. I'm giving you plenty of time to work on this. And if you need to check in with me at an office hour, please do that. Reach out and let's set some time aside so that you can understand what you're doing here. You will be asked to complete a contour map on your own on the upcoming exam. So it's important that you understand this concept now, and so that you can go into the exam knowing what you're doing. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And I'm going to do my best to use the tools available to me. Like I said, print it out on a piece of paper. That's the most tangible way to get this done. I'm going to work through the tools here digitally. Either way, it's the same way. What I'm looking for is you guys to submit something to me digitally, a picture or a scan or whatever it is. So I'm looking at one example here where we have these crosses, and each cross, there's really no specific pattern to them. This would be what we call randomly spaced. These crosses represent a spot on the ground that is an elevation. Okay, so an elevation of the terrain. So like in this example, the elevation here is 2,420, 2,630, 2,210, etc. Right? So that's what we're looking at here. How did something like this get derived? Well, this could be from somebody like an engineer or a land surveyor, and they would be collecting coordinates for a property or something like this. And so maybe an environmental map. And essentially what they're out there collecting is what you see within the cross. The cross itself represents the location of the spot, and then the number value represents its elevation. So we're going to create a map based on this information where we're displaying contours to give ourselves a lot more context behind this. The first thing you're going to need to do is kind of connect these dots. Okay, connect these dots. And this is a very simple process. But again, use a pencil because you're going to run into issues. I promise you will. And the easier time you have at going back and fixing that, the better this experience will be for you. So I'm going to find my annotation tools, and I'm going to come in here and I'm going to create some lines. So also best to use a ruler if you have one handy. You don't necessarily have to, but again, the cleaner this looks on your end when you're drawing, the easier time it's going to be. So I'm going to start. There's no particular place you have to start or end. I usually pick a corner and I work my way around. So if I kind of hover my mouse right here, If I create a line, whoops, here we go. Like from here to 2420 to 2360. Okay, perfect. That's step one, okay? Now, the next line I'm going to create is, say, from 2360 to 2630. Okay, perfect. How about I finish this little shape here from here to there? So you see what I've created is a triangle. Okay, so I'm going to triangulate the I'm going to triangulate the distances between these visually, the distances between these spots. Okay, so that's half the battle. Now let's continue through and triangulate the rest of the map. Okay, so here's another one. Here's another one, and then I'll kind of speed this up. Here we go, like this, like this. This one to this one here to here, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I'm back and I have all my triangles drawn out here. One note is this is considered to be a stream. So imagine that it's some type of river or something, water flow here. We are looking top down. So we want to be careful about crossing triangles over a stream, and I'll get to that in a little bit more. So for now, right now, I'm just going to leave this end or this side kind of open. The next step is to observe what additional information I have and kind of work through there so that I can create what's called a contour interval. It tells me down here at the very bottom of the map, the contour interval here is 100. We could say it's 100 feet, 100 meters, doesn't really matter. But the interval is very important. And so with the interval, what we're essentially going to be doing is creating contours that have a spacing of 100 feet apart from one another. That doesn't mean that the contour starts at 100. Let me repeat that. That does not mean that the contour starts at 100. It means that the interval between the contours is a 100. So the contour starts or ends basically wherever, with whatever information you have on the map. Okay. So in this case, again, let's go back to this kind of top corner. Doesn't really matter which way you do this, but if we start here at the top corner and we see 2420, what I'm trying to do, if I went from left to right, if I said 2420 compared to 2630, okay, and I've kind of got my eyes focused on this line here, in intervals of 100, where would I kind of mark something permanent to recognize that 100 interval? So 2420 is not a divisible number by, if you took 100 into 2420, you would not get an even number out of that. But if you took 20, if you took 2500, then you would get, and you divided it by 100, then you'd get 25 out of that, right? That's not really the point. The point is to pay attention to between 2420 and 2630, where are the 100s aligned, or what are the 100s line up? So what I mean is 2420, 2630, also paying attention to which one is theoretically lower and which one is theoretically higher, right? So which one is a smaller number versus a larger number? In this case, it would be from left to right. So 2420, we would say, okay, if we were to go up in elevation from 2420, what would be the next natural kind of 100 divisible number to be? So it wouldn't be 2400, it would be 2500. And in this case, what I would do is I would say, okay, 2500, I'm going to put what I'm going to call a tick right here, a little marker like that. Okay, that's what I want you guys to be drawing on your piece of paper. Okay, great. 2500, right? And I could put a little label like this. I do want you guys to do, that's not very good here. Let's try this with a text. How about that? A much smaller text at that. Sorry, this is not the most efficient way. There, 2,500, okay? Perfect. Then maybe I'll use a stamp. That might be better. Actually, I like that idea. Give me 1 second. Let's erase this tick. Whoops. Okay, starting over. Line. And then you could draw them as X's or little crosses or whatever. It doesn't really matter. So here's my 2,500. Before I put the label, let me continue along this path, because that's really what you're trying to think of here. So if I have 2,500, what's the next logical number to come after that? Again, in the 100 sequence. So it would be 2,500, 2,600. Well, if 2,600 is the next logical number, I have to ask myself before I mark that, is 2,600 lower or higher than 2,630? And in this case, it is lower. So therefore, it makes sense to fit it right here on the line. If it were larger than 2,630, it would not go here. Because what we have to do is make sure we're putting these crosses in locations that fit between the values that were given. In this case, 2,420, 2,630. And we know the interval is 100. So let's go ahead and put a 2,600 right here, like this. And then I'll use my text and put a 2,500 there, like that. And then I'll put a 2,600 here, like that. And that just lets me know what's going on in the map. Okay, there you go. So that's my first iteration of doing this. Now I'll come back in a second and I will show you what the triangulated map with all of the marks, all the crosses and their labels should look like. All right, so I finished all my crosses, put all my labels. I know this is a little bit messy, not ideal. And your map's probably gonna look a little messy too. I guarantee it will. But as long as you have a general understanding of what's going on here, what we've done, I know that doesn't make a lot of sense yet, but we're laying the groundwork, right? This is a kind of a connect the dots kind of a thing. And so having all of this groundwork laid makes the contour construction a much easier process to derive. So let's go ahead now and we could start to digitize the actual contours themselves. So we'll do that with our annotation here. I'm going to change my color to, let's use green. That should be bright. Yeah, and this is not a random thing now, right? We've got the foundation laid out. We know where all the different elevation values exist, or we've interpolated them to the best of our ability, okay? And so from here, we can start to actually draw out these lines. So again, I'm just picking this corner just to start with. And I'm gonna pick 2,400 right here. I'm gonna pick one of the crosses and I'm going to start to connect the other 2,400s that also exist. Notice that each one of my crosses is in the right place. If we have 2,360 to 2,630, then that would be 24, 25, 2,600 like that, right? There's no 2,615 or I don't know, 2834. Don't get distracted by the 2,630, 2,610. Don't get thrown off by that, thinking that, oh, like if this is 2210, my next one would be 2310 or 2410. No, that's not how this works. Everything is divisible by whatever the interval is that's assigned to you. And here's the other thing, right? Each map that I've given to you guys is going to have a different interval. So pay very close attention to this when you come out and you establish what these crosses and labels are going to be. 2,400, let's go ahead and start to connect this dot. So where is the next 2,400 in relation to this one? Well, it would be right here. So I'm going to simply draw a little line like this, okay? Now, the more continuous you can have your pencil, the better, but I don't expect these to be perfect, okay? I just want you to give your best effort at this. The next closest line would be, I could say, oh, it's maybe this one, but I can't just cross this triangle here if I'm not connected to if I'm not actually going through one of the X's. So doing this would be a no-no. But that doesn't mean that I shouldn't cross this line because there's a 2400 right here. So the contour is going to kind of curve like this, connect there, and then it's going to reach back around, do this, and before I finish with this line, I'm going to find out where my next 2400 is, which is down here at the edge. So then it's going to curve again like this, and it's going to end right there. Okay, so that would be the end of 2400. Now, what you could do is go outside the map and continue to kind of make this line more continuous if it makes sense, if it helps you. So if I were kind of out here in nothing space, I see that this is a 2480, meaning that everything kind of surrounding it should be a 2400. So I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to kind of go like this, go over this 2480, and then lo and behold, I found a 2400 right here. So that means that I'm going to go here. And where's the next 2400? Well, it ends up being right here. Okay. And then I've got kind of a sharp increase like this, where I come up around this 2400 and I go to this 2400, and then the same type of pattern occurs. Now, before I make a sharp turn and kind of come right over here, I have to be cognizant of this being a 2580, meaning that there's going to be a 25 that cuts in here first. So maybe I'll just leave that alone for now and kind of come back to it. Let me go back up to my corner and start working on the 25s now. Okay, 25 here. Where's the next one? 25 here. I could tell myself, oh, here's the next 25, but I cannot cross this line, can I? I cannot cross this line. There's no 25 cross on here. So in that case, my contour is actually going to do this, and it's going to continue on this path like this until I hit this next 2500 right here. What I could do, as I was just mentioning, is loop this around and go up to here, and then continue onwards till I find the next side of a triangle up to here, like that. And if I really wanted to complete the whole thing, I could come around like this and say done. Okay. Now, again, I didn't want to take too sharp of a turn because this is a 2630. But being that this is 2630, why don't I just start working on the 2600s now? 2600, 2600, 26, 26, back up around, and let me go back, and now I can kind of cut that through and go like that. I'm not cutting through any of these. I went over and around it. Okay, so there's my 26. Continuing on, I'm just kind of working naturally here. Where is my next kind of group of lines here? Maybe the 24. Well, here's a 24 and here's a 24. Okay. Would make sense to kind of loop this all the way, but then I start going off the paper. You know, again, these don't have to be perfect. Kind of stay within the confines of what you're doing. It's fine if the line ends from one triangle to the next. Nothing wrong with that. In fact, what we could do is bring this around. This is what I was talking about earlier, right? 24 to 24. That makes sense. Okay. And just to make things complete, why don't I come over here, complete this one, and bring it all the way around. Now, I am kind of guessing a little bit because I don't have any more information outside of these confines, but it does help to, I think, kind of complete the whole picture, right? Okay, 2300. Why don't we do here to here? And there's probably another 2300 over here somewhere. So I'm just going to kind of do some guesswork and say like that. All right. Actually, I think I just made a mistake because I see a 2300 right there. See, I got a little bit ahead of myself. I'm going to do this. Let me back up. Let me erase the line that I just made because that's incorrect. Okay. Back to, remember what I said about using a pencil? Here we go. Let's do 2300, and I see that it is connected to down here. So I'm going to continue on now. Look at that. I'm working through this line like this. When you come to a stream, it should naturally make kind of a V shape pointing towards the higher elevation. So it should do something like this. And I mean, there is no more 2300, so it kind of goes off into space. So I'll do something like this, and I'll just kind of end it like that. Okay. And that's fine. I mean, in reality, it's going to do something like this and kind of loop back around up into here, but I've kind of lost space on my page to do that. So I'm just going to say that's enough for that one. Now, I still have a whole collection of contours, however, right here in this center portion, or this kind of bottom left portion. What am I going to do with this? Well, I've got a 25, I've got 25, 26, 27, right? 25, 26, 27. And it's pretty consistent throughout each one of these. This kind of creates a nice little square pattern. So I'm just going to start with 25, and I'm going to start connecting these 25, 25, 25, 25, and then look at that, right? So it does create kind of this little square in a sense. I'm going to do the same with 26. Here, 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 here. And this is a bit unique. You don't always see kind of these closed loops directly inside of the map itself, but if it exists, it's fine. What we're doing here is we're creating and there you go. What we've done is we've created a hill here, right? So this is a higher elevation. This is a higher elevation, right? And this should start to kind of look familiar now based on that profile thing we did. If we wanted to do a profile of this exercise, we could actually, now that we have the contour information available. What we should be seeing here in our minds is if we flip this on its side, that the 27 and the 26 stand out as being kind of the peaks of this particular map. 24, that's a much lower elevation. So that's where you have kind of the valley, and then the peak goes back up again. And it makes sense because you have 24 here, you have a stream here. Well, the lowest relative point, if you're looking at some type of topography, usually a place where water's flowing or a channel where water's flowing is the lowest spot, right? Because water travels downhill and it settles down in a valley. So if we were to continue this stream, it would probably do something like, I guess it would do something like this, but that's okay. It's, you know, you work with what you're given to do. Okay, so I know this video took a little bit of time, but I hope it was helpful, that this will start to make sense. And some of them I'm going to give you, some of the examples I'm giving you the triangles with the labels already put out. Some of them you have to do the whole thing by yourself. And when you get to the exam, you're going to find one where you got to do it all, right? So again, key things to pay attention to, your contour interval. Make sure you triangulate between all those, between all of the spot elevations, and make sure you put all your crosses with your text next to that, right? So that you have some context to work with. And then it's just a matter of kind of drawing it out and doing what makes sense, all right? Be careful for the rules. Don't cross over triangle sides where it doesn't make sense. And tell yourself like, oh, if I cross here, is that actually allowable given, you know, the instructions and the protocol that I kind of laid out in this video. Hope it goes well for you. Reach out, like I said, if you have questions. This is a tough one, but I think everybody can do a good job. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye for now.